Alright guys, it is 3:20 p.m. September 20th, 2017. Just a quick afternoon update for you. We had some decent news with Hurricane Maria here. We were at Category 5, 175 mile per hour sustained winds with nothing in its path to stop it. But luckily we had something called an eyewall replacement cycle happen. And in a nutshell what that is an outer eyewall begins to form around the inner eyewall, and basically it takes over that portion of the hurricane, and that collapses that inner eyewall with those high winds, and the winds dropped about 30 to 40 miles per hour with this new eyewall. And what that does is it expands the wind area, so there is more area covered by wind, but the wind is less dramatic. So we weren't looking at that little pinhole eyewall that with the 175, 180 mile an hour winds that would have just decimated this island or anywhere it touched. So that was some good news for Puerto Rico. That happened right before landfall, making it a Category 4 at the time of landfall. Right now we are at a Category 3 storm, 115 mile per hour winds, moving northwest at about 12 miles per hour. Which is good. The storm is weakening, but the only bad news is that the eye is about to pass that north coast of Puerto Rico. Chances are it will re-strengthen again with all this warm water to go. It's just a matter of how much it's going to strengthen. We do still have our paths leading up towards the east coast. Now we have two situations going on with the path of Maria. We do have our Bermuda Atlantic pressure building really high right now, right where my mouse is circling in this bubble here. And what that's doing is that is keeping Maria pressed against the east coast, and that's where the risks are. But we are relying, once again, that we talk about all the time here, is our jet stream. We are projected to have a deep U in the jet stream, and that is going to come almost as low as Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, just as Maria is level with, I would say, the Bahamas. And what that's going to do is that's going to form a wall, and that moves west to east, and hopefully that will be strong enough to battle this pressure in the Bermuda Atlantic and keep this storm off the coast, or at least just skimming the coast without a landfall. Now, as far as the models go, there are still potentials for landfall with this storm. With this season and the way it's going, that's why it's just so important to watch these things, guys. There's no guarantees in anything. As early as last night, we were looking at a devastating Category 5 storm that was going to rip apart Puerto Rico, and then at last minute, we had a situation that I just described called the eyewall replacement. So that was the only thing that saved these people, for those that were saved. I'm not sure on the situation there. I know there's significant damage that happened. You can expect that with Category 4 storms, guys. Category 4 is no joke. Category 5 would have been a lot worse. Now, a few things we need to look out for that are possibly forming. If you see my mouse here on the south side of Mexico, we have a formation building here with some signs of circulation, which is the first sign of a tropical depression. Now, they did put a percentage on this already. They actually did this as I was recording the first version of this. I had to redo it to update that information. So what we have going on in the eastern North Pacific is this. This was at 10% yesterday, and now we're at 30% over the next 48 hours and 80% over the next 5 days. If you remember, this is where Hurricane Max was in Mexico, and then we had Hurricane Norma, which was projected to come up in this area, possibly as a Cat 4. That did not happen. That storm ended up being a no-show, which is a good thing. But here we go again. We have another set of storms down here looking to cycle up, and it's projected to move up the west coast. There is potential for Southern California to really watch this storm. It's happened in the past. Usually by here it's a weaker tropical storm type deal when they get to Southern California, but nonetheless something to watch. We also have Lee, which was formed and then not formed. I'm not sure if it'll even get the same name if it makes it through this, but we went from a 10% yesterday now up to a 40% chance of cyclone formation over 48 hours and then 50% over 5 days. Now, the only good news with that is that, like I said, this high Bermuda pressure here is basically like a bubble, and if this stays here and forms in this area, chances are it's just going to move up on the right side of that bubble and keep it away from us. We're going to have to watch and see. Maybe it might get lower down in this area. If it does, it may get carried this way, but we just don't know yet. One of my main concerns, though, is actually this grouping of storms down here. It hasn't even been put a percentage to it yet, but I would not be surprised to see if it does shortly, probably in a couple hours, for another possible tropical depression. And then we have another set of storms about to leave the west coast of Africa, guys. So just when you think this is all over, there are a few more situations brewing. They even mentioned this on the Weather Channel to look out for this area. So I'm going to be watching it. We just need to keep an eye on it. All right, so we have here's the percentage for that storm I just showed you, 50% cyclone formation in 5 days. Again, it's going to be on the right side of this pressure bubble. Hopefully it stays this way and just stays out of our way. And then Maria, we need to see what happens with the east coast and our jet stream, and also the Bermuda Atlantic, which is pressing it against the east coast according to the charts. This is our wide view. Again, here are those storms exploding off of the west side of Africa. This is where these hurricanes form, guys, unless the shear winds rip them apart, which they have not been doing a good deal of this year. And then again, we have these storms here on the other side by Mexico, which has cyclone formation probability. Here is a close-up view of Maria. I want you to notice something here. As it made landfall, you could see those deep red colors starting to fade away, but now that it's getting off the coast, they're starting to reform again. So we should expect this storm to get bigger. I don't think it'll reach the strength that it was before that Eyewall replacement cycle, which is good news, but nonetheless, we still could be looking at a Cat 4 storm as it makes its approach towards Bahamas and west side of Florida. So something to keep an eye on once again. These are the satellite images of Jose. Jose is currently moving northeast, 70-mile-per-hour winds. Pressure has risen again to, I think, 975, 976. So that is decent news. We are waiting to see if this will loop back around and have any effect on Maria. Here is our timeline. Basically no movement at all. It's just going to sit here for a few days. Some models have it moving towards New Jersey and stuff like that, but as a much weaker storm. Again, we just need to wait and see if this will interact with Maria at all and see what happens with that. These are the areas that are still under tropical storm warning for Jose. Areas like Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, all the way as north as Provincetown. Again, those people need to keep an eye on this, especially on the coastlines where there's a lot of those rip currents, beach erosion, stuff like that. And last but not least for this update, guys, I just want to show you what I've been seeing on the wind map. Again, here's Jose. This is Maria here. These are the remnants of Hurricane Lee, or Tropical Storm Lee, which are possibly going to reform. That's the 40% chance. And then the one that's not named yet is the one that I'm really concerned about, and that's this group of dense storms here. It looks like it might start a rotation. If it does, that's when we get our tropical depressions, and then they form into tropical storms, and then Category 1. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on that. And then as well, there is another dark color of storms coming off right there. You can see it in the last couple frames coming off of Africa. So guys, still a lot to watch. The season is not over yet. Officially over November 30th, but again, we had some decent news for Maria with Puerto Rico. We just need to wait and see what happens with this storm, guys. This thing is got question marks all over it. All right, I will be back with a bigger update in a little while, and that's it for now, guys. Thanks for sticking with me. I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.